What up, YouTube? This video is taken on this Friday afternoon, January 6, 2023. Time right now is 3:18 p.m. And I'm ready to show off the prototype of my custom 5-inch freestyle frame project, Questor. And let me zoom in on the logo here to kind of brag about that a little bit. Questor, my 5-inch freestyle frame. Now, if you're wondering where I got the name from, yes, I got the name from the Busch Gardens flight simulator ride from the early 90s. And the really cool part about, I was kind of a fan of that flight simulator, but the cool part and the reason I used that name is because I found out that they actually filmed the video in the, like I said, I think that ride came out in the early 90s. So in the late 80s or early 90s, they filmed the video for that ride using an RC helicopter on film. And I'll overlay some footage that's online of that. And I would love to kind of do a deep dive and kind of learn how they were able to achieve that. It seemed like it was a very small production company that did that, and that system they were using, they had a name for it. It doesn't seem like they used it. It didn't become popular, and I'm sure there was a ton of challenges. If they could find the guy who, back then to accomplish that, now getting that shot would be really easy, but back then to accomplish that, man, that guy probably has a lot of stories of everything they had to go through to get that set up. But anyway, so that's why I decided to name my custom 5-inch freestyle project. And basically, I decided to make my own frame because I'm kind of weird, I guess. So I was trying to think of how to explain this. But basically, since I've been in this hobby, I've had a hard time with equipment becoming obsolete. And it seems like equipment that works for me is not common equipment. Like, for example, I built a Mr. Steel Quad, and I only kept that thing up in the air for 2 weeks before I burned up a motor and burnt up the ESC, and then those FetTech ESCs were unobtainium. So I ended up using other equipment. After that, I realized that I needed to stop seeing what other people use and try to figure out what works for me. So in experimenting in what works for me, I ended up finding out that Holly wrote individual ESCs with the all-in-one flight controller, and the DJI unit was my perfect combination. And I had that set up on a Stingy build, which that was a great build. I love that build, with the exception of I was trying to learn Matty flips back then, and I was snapping the bottom plates, and I couldn't keep a supply of bottom plates. X-Hover wasn't selling them, and they were kind of being quiet if they were going to discontinue the Stingy or not. And it turns out they didn't discontinue the Stingy. So I ended up taking that whole same flight stack and I put it on gravity loss frame because I ran across a gravity loss frame from a YouTuber I was subscribed to that was sponsored by them. And that frame worked out good, with the exception of that frame's not made for individual ESCs, so the build on that was very sloppy and it was hard to maintain. And then I was snapping arms on that GRL frame, and when I was snapping arms, I was pulling off pads off the all-in-one flight controller, which was a nightmare to try to keep them up in the air. I did manage to every time. One time I repaired the pad, and then the other time I just jumpered. It was a ground, so I jumpered the ground from another spot. So after that, and I was really frustrated on that GRL frame that when I snapped the arm and was pulling those pads off, it ended up being like a big ordeal to repair. So I decided that I was going to go and design a frame that works for me, works for the equipment I want to use. And this is what I came up with. Now, full disclosure, I wanted to film this before I got it all dirty. So this is before the Maiden, and I'm actually waiting for a part to come in the mail. It's out for delivery right now. So I thought I would go and film it while I was waiting, but I'm going to try to Maiden it this evening. And this is just a prototype, so it can still change. I bought my own small CNC 400 by 300 millimeter build table CNC, so I can rapidly prototype. And I'll do a video in the future talking about diving into cutting carbon fiber on a CNC machine. So I am going to still Maiden this, get it tuned real well. Once I get it tuned real well, I'm just going to go ahead and bash it to see where the weak points are, and I'm going to still rapidly prototype to make it better. But this is what I got so far, and I thought I would explain some design considerations I made when filming this, when building this. So basically, the way it sits right now, which it's missing its tracer antennas, and it's missing the propellers and the prop nuts. It weighs 748 grams. One design flaw that I just ran into is, in order to balance the battery properly, to get it balanced, I can only use one LiPo strap, which I don't like. But I am using UMA grip, so maybe that won't be a problem. And I think I might experiment with doing toilet tank style batteries on another prototype of the top plate. I wanted to make this thing easily serviceable with individual ESCs, and I wanted to be able to tear it apart without like worrying about wires unplugging and stuff. And I was pretty much successful with that. Although it's kind of weird how I take the top plate off in order to make that happen. So basically, I just loosen I remove the middle standoff top plate screws. And basically, when I designed this, I used a combination of design characteristics. My main design that I was copying from was the blackout frame, because I don't know, I just had fond memories of, that was my first quad I built. I had fond memories of building it, and I really liked the idea of having the PDB. So basically, this is a bottom plate. This is a blackout frame inspired frame with characteristics from other frames I flew. Okay, once you take out the middle plate or the screws, in order to take it out clean, in order to take the top plate off, you take out the bottom screws on the ends, on the front and back. And I custom 3D. I design all my 3D prints in-house too. So I have nice heavy-duty front bumper and rear bumpers. And rear bumpers are very important for Matty flips, I found out. That's what really saves your bottom plate. Now, the top and bottom plates are 1.5 millimeter thick carbon fiber. All the carbon fiber I used is generic Amazon carbon fiber, but it is labeled 3K. And I decided to use glossy finish just because, like I said, I liked how blackout frames always use glossy finish. I do want to go and try out the Luminaire carbon fiber sheets that you can get from Get FPV. They were out of stock. One of the sizes were out of stock when I went to build this, so I just used the Amazon one. But they're not too terribly more expensive than Amazon carbon fiber. So I wanted to get them. They're matte finish though. And then the arms are 3 millimeters thick. So I copied that, the 1.5 millimeters and 3 millimeters, I copied that from the blackout. I know 3 millimeters is very, it's not that thick for quadcopters these days. You know, it's very common back when the blackout was built. But my theory is, since the arms are so wide for the individual ESCs, you don't need really thick arm plates, really thick carbon fiber for the arms. So once you undo those 8 screws, so it's just 8 screws to take the top plate off. It's just a little different than the fact that you had to alternate the bottom and the top. Still being held on, oh, probably this one. Okay, once you take the top plate off, the whole DJI camera system comes with the top plate, but it is connected to the flight controller with one cable. So that one cable there, the whole top plate's off, and now it's easily serviceable. And like I said, I wanted to have an individual ESC setup that was nice and neat. So just like the Blackout, I had a custom designed PDB that I made that sandwiches it sandwiches the arms together, and then I just have little washers there on the standoff to hold it together. And in order to change an arm, you just take you undo these two bolts, and the arm slides right on out. And it is an H pattern, and the arms lock together, front arms lock together, back arms lock together, and it's super rigid. I originally was going to go to a 4-bolt pattern, but I kind of lost room with the pads for the PDB. And my buddy Stacy Absire, when he was looking at my prototypes, which I was cutting them out on my laser cutter in cardboard, he said just go with 2. It's going to be 2 will be fine, and he was right. This thing, the arms are rock solid. They don't move at all. No wiggle room at all. And it's 6S. The ESCs, I designed these TPU ESC protectors, and I decided to go with a minimalist design on these. So I don't know if that's going to be a durability problem, but I'm thinking even though it's a minimalist design, it is going to protect the ESCs from prop strikes. And you have your power, ground, ESC signal, and telemetry, and that's how you get your voltage and current ratings is through the telemetry. And then that comes around and goes to 8-pin, you can see it in there, goes to an 8-pin JST that then goes and 8-pin GST cable goes into the flight controller. So it's like this flight controller is designed for a 4-in-1 ESC. So it's like just having a 4-in-1 ESC. You plug in that one cable, except you have individual ESCs. So that was another design consideration. One thing I meant to do, and I ended up not doing it, I wanted to drill holes in the PDB in order to be able to mount my Wi-Fi finder beeper and my tracer receiver. And I somehow forgot to do that. I sent it off to JLC PCB, and I forgot to do that. So I'm using sticky tape for the receiver, and I'm just going to put what is it, catgut string around it here, and then I designed it's double-sided sticky tape with this little mount I designed for the Wi-Fi beeper so it won't fall off. I also have RGB LEDs in there. I have 5. This center one I have programmed for arm to show you if it's arm or not, and I have 2 in the corner here, or 4. 1 in each corner, just like the Blackout kind of had, but these are RGB, and that has a 3-pin JST right here that goes to the flight controller. The flight controller can be taken out. All the connections to the flight controller are has connectors, so I can just undo the connectors, and the flight controller can come out for easy serviceability. The XT60 connector goes into the PDB right here, and each ESC has its own capacitor that comes with the Holybro ESCs, and I like to run TVS diodes, so in parallel is a TVS diode for each ESC right there. That might be a little overkill, but that's how I've been running my setup on my last Holybro setup, and I haven't burned out a single ESC. Those were Holybro 35 amp individual ESCs, which are obsolete now, and these are Holybro 45 amp ESCs. And this is a Holybro Kakoots H7. This is a V1, which is obsolete right now. That is a bummer because I like the V2. Basically, the only difference is the V2 doesn't have an SD card reader. It has built-in flash memory. But that's the story of my life. My equipment goes obsolete. But it's kind of cool because I can get that new one and just plug and play it in here. I already set up the Bluetooth with the app on my phone, and it works flawlessly, that whole Bluetooth setup. So I look forward to tuning it using my phone and the Bluetooth. And now the tracer module, I was trying to find a way to mount. On my old setup, I had the tracer antennas mounted on the bottom side of the rear arms, and I was breaking antennas left and right. So I wanted to try a fancy way to mount those tracer Immortal L's, or Immortal T's, I mean, without them getting damaged. I couldn't find a simple way to do it. So what I decided to do, and what I'm waiting on in the mail now, is I just got straight linear tracer antennas, and I'm going to do the old school method. I'm going to put them in really small pneumatic tubing and just run them along the arms here, and that's going to be an experiment to see how what the range is going to be on that. But I think the range is still going to be fine or unnoticeable for my application, because right now on both my quads the antennas are damaged, and like one quad's only running with one antenna, and I still have plenty of range. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, I wanted to do durability. Now I really like these Zing E Pro motors, and I usually run the 1800 kV just as a just to change things up. I decided to drop down to the 1700 kV just to see what a little lower kV motor would do here. The arms, they look, in my opinion, the arms look really ugly, but I've usually been running arm bumpers, and I wanted to get rid of arm bumpers because I don't like how arm bumpers kind of soft mount the motors, and I never really felt like I got a good connection with the motor. And then you don't know how much you're squeezing down on the TPUs, so the bolts would hit the wires on the windings of the motor. I just never really liked that, so I decided to go bare, and I did take super glue and super glue the leading and trailing edges of the arms to make them more durable. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't ran no covers on the arms since my Stingy V1, so we'll see how that works out. Now I think they look really ugly. Now I designed the arms to protect the motors from front impact and side impact, and I think they look very ugly. The reason they look ugly is because typically everyone's running a X pattern, and when you run the X pattern, the pattern for the mounting holes, let me show you on the backside here, would line up to where the bumps to protect the motor are. Well, they don't line up when you're running an H pattern. So, oh yeah, by the way, it is a true 250 millimeter class quadcopter. From the center of this, oh, I'm not in frame. From the center of this motor to the center of this motor is 250 millimeters. And it's set up for, I don't know if you guys remember the super blackouts, which were kind of made for 6-inch props, but everyone ran a super blackout because it helped with prop wash on the 5-inch props. So it's set up for, it could theoretically run 6-inch arms, but I'm just going to run it with 5-inch. But I really like that. I wanted the pattern to be the same as the blackout. Let me see. Oh, another design. So here's the whole DJI unit. Another design consideration that I had a problem with on my previous builds, and Joshua Bardwell has a video saying that this isn't a problem. Don't worry about it, but it was a problem for me. Is I can't have my DJI system connected to ground. Oh yeah, so by the way, this whole frame is not connected to ground. It's a floating frame. It's not purposely connected to ground, and I purposely designed it so it wouldn't have any contact to ground, because I always have problems when they have contact to ground. Like with the Apex, the mount for the video transmitter antenna connects it to ground. I don't know. That's something I've always had problems with. So when I designed this one, I purposely designed it so it doesn't connect to ground. So the Caddx Vista is mounted with double-sided sticky tape, and I'm using this catnip string. So then that way that's not connected to ground. And the camera is mounted with TPU, soft mount TPU, and it's locked in at 25 degrees. I've always run 25 degrees since I departed from the blackout. The blackout frames you could only run 0 degrees. I've been running 25 degrees for years, so I just have it mounted so it can't shift at all. And then, of course, my trusty Action 2 mount that has saved my Action 2 countless times. I have it mounted 25 degrees. And just the way that I have the standoffs on, I made a design consideration. Instead of making the blackout mount go all the way, or not the blackout mount, the Action 2 mount go all the way to the standoffs, I have just a bolt with a neoprene nut going into its own holes. Yeah, so that's pretty much my design considerations for this build. Like I said, once I get the antennas for the RX, I'm going to take it out and do a Maiden, which I'm going to film that as well. But yeah, I just wanted to point out the things that when I was designing this, the things that I was designing for, and just feel free to comment any feedback on what you think. If you think there's any durability issues, any design flaws that I could do on the next revision. And there's definitely some things I want to change, some very little things I want to change. Overall, I'm very pleased with how this came out. But at this point, I just want to get this tuned, see how it flies, see if it flies good, and then I'm going to bash it and see what breaks, what I would need to change for the next revision. It's definitely, this is my first frame I ever designed. I have no experience designing frames or cutting out carbon fiber, so it's definitely a learning experience. And it was something different that I didn't know how to do. Oh yeah, by the way, I wanted to put 20 millimeter standoffs on here. I wanted to get the standoffs as short as possible. And with 20 millimeter standoffs, you can't put the old school DJI camera in there. It's just too big. So on the PDV, you might see here, it is cut out. So, but the carbon fiber is solid underneath it. So hopefully that won't be. I am interesting to see if the carbon fiber is durable or not, running 3 millimeter arms and 1.5 millimeter bottom plate. So definitely it's been an adventure, but I think as far as serviceability, look how neat it is. If I needed to solder it to ESC, just bam, 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 solder it. I mean, no wires. If you would have seen my GRL frame, maybe I'll take a photo of it. The wires were like all tied up against the standoffs and jammed in there, and it was very hard to work on that GRL frame with individual ESCs. So I wanted something that was very easily serviceable. And look, everything is easily serviceable. So that was a big design consideration that worked out good. Oh yeah, one last thing. On my Stingy frame, I made a custom VTX antenna mount, and I mounted it similar, and I had no problems. With the GRL frame, if you know, the VTX antenna kind of sticks out like this, and I've been breaking VTX antennas left and right. So I went back to having it straight out the back, and we'll see if we have any range problems with that. But I didn't have any range problems with the Stingy build. I am interested to see if I'll notice any difference with range having linear antennas mounted straight up and down the arm. But they're bulletproof that way. When you have them in pneumatic hose tubing and you have them ran along the arms, you're not going to damage the antennas at all. Which I was, on my GRL frame, I was snapping arms, which were pulling off pads off the flight controller, which was frustrating. And I also been breaking tracer antennas and VTX antennas left and right. So I was trying to make a design that I won't have to do that. But I am interested to see there's is going to probably be flaws in this design that I'm unaware of. So I'm interested to see, time will reveal what those design flaws are. So yeah, that's next shot. I'll be out in the field somewhere, and we'll do a Maiden on this, see how it flies. Okay, so we're out at a local spot I wanted to fly. There is a cooler spot that's currently in development, not too far away, but I'm kind of running out of daylight here, and I know that I'm not going to get kicked out of here or have any problems. But yeah, here we go. We are ready for the Maiden. Look at that. So actual Maiden weight is 773 grams. And I'm flying with the Speedy Pizza 1200 milliampere 6S battery, which is the heaviest battery I have in my fleet. And with this project, I also decided to just do several, like to test out props, test out a whole bunch of different props to, test what I got, see if there's anything better out there than what I usually fly. And I did stick with all the props I bought were all Gem fans, because I feel they're a little more durable than HQ props. But these are Hurricane X props, 51-4, 55-4. So, and they're out of all the props I was trying, they're the only 4-bladed props. So I figured I would give it a try. Although it says they're designed for racing. Yeah, so without further ado, it's been months and months and months of designing, and finally I'm ready for the Maiden. So, oh yeah, before I take off, when I was at the bench, my camera battery was about to die, so I was in a rush. Another design consideration that I made with this is, instead of putting the skid plates on the arms, I put the skid plates in the center here, and I capsulized the nylock nut so they don't turn. And maybe that helps keep the arms nice and stiff, the fact that they're connected. But I put the skid plates in the center here because my design consideration for that was, when you have the skid plates on the arms, when you come down and slam, all that force being slammed is on the arms and your weight is in your main body. And I was wondering if that was making the arms weak over time. So I figured if you put the skid plates in the center, when it slams, all the weight's in the center and it's resting on the center. I don't know. I thought I would point that out, that was one of my design considerations. Oh yeah, and real quick, this is how I ended up doing the tracer wires. There you go, we're in the sun. Just use pneumatic tubing and put it here. And also I used no zip ties on this build. I used this catnip cord, and then after I tied the knots, I heat it up with a heat gun, and like the wax melts, so it prevents the knot from untightening. Just wanted to try something different. So yeah, I'm real excited. Let's get it up in the air. Okay, so just to give you a warning, my lens protector is cracked on this Action 2. And this is with stock PIDs and stock filtering. I didn't touch any of that yet. With the exception of the stock PIDs on the master slider, I turned it up to 1.4 because I know for 5-inch freestyle builds, that's usually around where you want the master slider. But I didn't touch any of the other sliders. I still got to tune it. This is strictly Maiden. Okay, it passed the Blackmagic smoke test. I am a little nervous because when I was doing bench testing, the camera did drop out once and it never reconnected. But the DDI didn't connect out. I had a full signal, it's just the camera dropped out. I don't know why. 24.4. That's kind of weird. This is a freshly charged battery. And it says 24.4. I didn't realize I was armed. It was super quiet. Yeah, it does need a little tuning. It has my rates on it, by the way, which I fly high rates. It's like, I'm still on Beta Flight, no Expo, or no RT Expo. I forget if it was RT Expo that you don't set, but pretty much I have rolls set to 1200, pitch set to 1000, and y'all set to 800. Okay, I don't want to bash it yet. Like I said, I want to try to get a good tune on it before I bash it. So this is strictly going to be a Maiden. Feels pretty good. It doesn't really feel too much different than my GRL setup. So I'm running lower kV motors than I'm used to, but I think these props are higher pitch probably. I like how quiet it is. What's this here? Oh, trash can, that's usually not there. Okay, I usually play with this fork in this tree. It just, right now, first impressions is it just sounds and feels like a clean build. Oh, what's this? We got a newly deceased. Should I try to do the Matty flip? I usually do a Matty flip in this branch right here. That was a weird, that definitely is something that I'm not used to, the way it front flipped. And it would be really cool if the train came. Okay, there is a dive gap. Yeah, so I still gotta get used to. So it seems it's not as let me really try to recover it from a dive. And the problem with testing all these props is that once I break a prop, I gotta try another set because I only bought one of each. I forget, I wasn't gonna try a 4-bladed prop, but there was someone I was watching that was running 4-bladed props, and they were a real basher too, and that's why I was surprised they were running them. I do like how quiet it is. It's definitely a lot more quiet than a 3-bladed prop. I'm running out of tricks. There's no place to, definitely needs a tune. Yeah, you see that prop wars?
Low battery, 22 volts.
Okay, and that's the thing, I don't know if my milliampere hours are, is calculated properly. It does seem like I'm at 821 milliamperes hours, which is higher than I usually run on my GRL setup. So you don't know how, until you get used to it, you don't know how much you have left to go.
Low battery, 22.1 volts. Low battery.
I guess I should have brought it in to check motor temps. But I don't hear any crazy trilling or whatever. And according to my timer, I just hit 5 minutes, which is insane. I never usually get 5-minute flight times.
Low battery, 21.5 volts.
Okay, Maiden was successful. Oh, you know what? I got so excited. I was going to do pre-Maiden photo shoot. But luckily I didn't bash it, so I can still do a pre-Maiden photo shoot. Yeah, so that's it. That's my, let me turn it off before I slice my thumb off. Let me check motor temps. Man, motor temps are good. Man, I'm super excited. Like I said, months and months and months. I forget when I started on this project. It must have been August, maybe? I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure when I started on this project, but I get the first Maiden. I still have a long ways to go. Like I said, I wanted to get it nice and tuned, and then I want to bash it and see what the vulnerabilities are. Because even though I have plenty of parts to keep my GRL frame going, eventually this is going to take over and be my main quad. But yeah, I thought I would just make this video just showing that I successfully cut my own frame and got it flying. And in the future, I'll do update videos showing anything I changed or what have you. But yeah, this is super cool. So yeah, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.